This is Not Ashamed with Ashley Nordman, a podcast all about life, dating, relationships, success, and more. It's time to share, and there's no holding back. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is really vulnerable for me. It's something that I'm kind of ashamed to talk about sometimes, but it's a really important topic, and I think it's something that you're going to resonate with, because I can almost guarantee it's something that you struggle with too, just because I talk to a lot of you about this also. So for me, the topic that I really want to cover is all things friends. So making friends, keeping friends, knowing when to cut them off, everything involving friendships. And as you probably know, friendships are a huge part of life. Like having those really great people in your corner, a great support system, it's super important. And unfortunately, over the years, I have been burned so bad. I've been in a lot of therapy and I've done a lot of things to finally bring in the right people, and I finally have a great friend group that I feel really proud of, but it's taken a long time to get here. So I really want to unpack that today and dive in and talk about what I've been through and how I have finally got to this place where I have good friendships and have maintained them. And I know it's going to really resonate with you if you're feeling that same struggle that I once had. So jumping in here, I'm going to start with the fact that I am actually a very different person than most people. I feel like sometimes I don't feel like I fit in. I have kind of a lot of baggage as a person just because I have a very strong personality, I guess is the better way to put it. And with that comes, a lot of shit. And so for me, I am someone who I'm very all in with my people. I don't know if you believe in horoscopes and all that kind of stuff, but when I look at anything involving my horoscope, first of all, I'm a Cancer. Remy, my dog, is running around and shaking off right now. So sorry if you hear her. But anyway, if you look into anything with horoscopes, I'm a Cancer, so my birthday's in July, and Cancers are notorious for being very loyal to their people. And I will say that is spot on with me. I am so loyal to my friends. I'm all in with them. And because of that, that kind of comes with a lot. I'm a lot. I'm kind of intense. When I take you in as a friend, I immediately see the potential in you and I want to bring that out of you and fix you. And that's not always a good thing, but that's just how I operate. I want every single person who comes into my life to be my friend. And that's something I'll talk about further on in the episode. But unfortunately, and also fortunately for me, I'm a very friendly person, but sometimes bringing in every single person isn't a good thing. And I've learned to rein it in over the years, but that's just naturally who I tend to be. I want everyone to be my friend. I allow everybody in, and I have a very strong personality, and I have a lot. I'm kind of intense because I am loyal. You're my people. I want you to be successful. I'm bringing you to the top with me, even if I'm dragging you along. That's how I operate. So to give you a little extra information here, growing up, I always really struggled with friends, and I think it was because of this fact that I always have felt a little different. I have just a very unique personality. I have a very strong energy, and not everyone can handle that. And I learned the hard way that it can make you feel like you don't fit in. And so growing up, I really did struggle with finding a friend group. I always considered myself a floater. I floated between all these different friend groups. I had a ton of acquaintances, but I never felt like I could really stick with people. They would either outgrow me, or I didn't feel like I fit in with them, or I would get picked on. I was bullied a lot. And so I really, really struggled with acceptance and feeling like people understood me. And it was also so hard for me to find this core group of people. And so again, since I'm someone that takes anybody in, I would literally come across any person and be I want to be your friend. You should be mine. And if they begged me to do anything, I would drop everything in a moment and do that. And although that can be a great quality, it also comes with a cost. And so for me, I found myself doing things out of desperation just to get approval from people and just to get their acceptance. And it wasn't really me being genuine to who I was, if that makes sense. Maybe this resonates with you. Maybe you've had times in your life where you've done that too. But looking back, I've had to have some really honest conversations with myself because I learned the hard way that I was truly just trying to seek attention a lot. And if I didn't get constant attention from people, I felt like they didn't love me. I felt like they didn't like me. And then I think I honestly got in my own head, and then I would almost sabotage these friendships. And it took a lot of growth for me to realize that I was the problem. Because I think for so many years I thought, oh, well, I'm different. I don't fit in. I'm a lot. I'm intense. I thought it was just me that didn't mesh with other people. But at the end of the day, I was starting to learn that like, I mean, it really was me. It was me that was the problem, not these other people not like accepting me for who I was. It was that I was getting in my own way because I just needed like this constant reassurance and attention from people. And I think, you know, I grew up kind of struggling with getting the right attention that I needed. And so I sought that in my friends. And if I wasn't getting this like foot on the gas, 100% effort all the time, I immediately thought the worst. Like, oh, they don't like me anymore. They're done with me. And it's actually funny that I'm bringing this up right now because I have grown from that, but I do have my moments where I slip up. You know, we're never perfect. And I actually have a couple of friends now, and I was at an event recently where there was like 5 or 6 of us all together. And I remember like most of them kind of being off, like doing things together, and I was kind of on my own. And I had like a moment of insecurity where I was like, do they not like me anymore? Are they done with me? Like, am I not good enough for this friend group? And then I had to rein it in and be like, no, it's fine. Like, your friends are allowed to give their energy to other friends too. And it doesn't take away from the friendship you have with them. But it really took me right back to like being in junior high school where I felt very insecure because if one person wasn't giving me like 100% of their attention all the time, for whatever reason, I felt like, oh my gosh, they're, you know, drawing back. They don't like me anymore. And it was just like this internal battle that I always used to have. And so every once in a while I get these little triggers, but then I remind myself like, I'm a great friend. I'm a great person. My friends love me, and they don't have to give me constant attention and, you know, constantly be up my butt in order to be like my friend. So now that you've learned a few things about me and how I operate, and you know, I'm someone, again, who I take in everyone, and I could see almost anybody as like a potential best friend. I also say this to say that like as I've gotten older and now in my 30s, I've learned how to really rein it in and like set some boundaries and realize that like not everyone is deserving of your energy. Not everyone is deserving of your time. And I've also learned that I have to work through the stuff that makes me insecure, because if I don't, I'm not going to be a great friend and I might sabotage that friendship. So there's been a lot of growth and a lot of learning, and I have a couple of tips that I really want to share with you today, like as I reflect back on how I've got to where I am, and also as I look towards the future as like what kind of friendships I want to cultivate. Because like I mentioned at the beginning, like I have been burned so bad by people, and I'm not going to blame everyone else. Like I think it takes 2 to tango, and like people have definitely effed me over, but I've also allowed it. And I've also like possibly had like too high of expectations at times for people too. So there's a lot here that we can unpack. But as I dive through like these tips and these things that I've learned over the years, I think it'll all come together as we see that like friendships and growing relationships with people in general is a constantly evolving thing where we have to work on ourselves, but we also have to realize like sometimes other people aren't worthy of our time and energy, and that's okay too. So some things I've learned. I'm going to start with number 1. When it comes to making the right friends, I have learned the hard way that it comes down to kind of like what it would be like in a relationship. It needs to be like a slow and steady burn versus like this intense, fast, crazy thing where someone just swoops in and like wants to be your best friend right away. You know the term love bombing? You probably see that and hear that a lot online. That's kind of what I consider this. I feel like there are those friends that come in and like love bomb you, and they just like overpower you, shower you with love. They just want to be your best friend from day one. And I used to love that. I used to think, oh my gosh, this person's like passionate. Like they want to be my best friend and this is great. But over time, I learned that I actually have to use that as like a little bit of a red flag, because every single time I've had a friend come in like that, they've crashed and burned so quickly. And it's because I have to step back now and look back and go, what is their motive here? Because originally when people would do this to me, I thought it's just because they were really excited to be my friend. But after time and time again of this happening, I've learned it's because people saw something in me that they wanted. And a lot of people are impatient, so they just dive in as fast as they can. They think the quicker they become your bestie, the faster they're going to get it out of you. And then before you know it, you're getting hurt because you have this person that you just opened up to, allowed in your life way too fast, and you missed all the red flags, and then they go and F you over. And that's happened to me a lot. So now when people kind of come in hot and heavy, I have to stand back and reassess and go, okay, what is their motive here? Number 2 is setting boundaries. So this is something I struggle so much with. I don't know why. As a woman, I am so bad at struggling with boundaries. I'm sure you understand. You're probably like, yes, I struggle with boundaries too. And you know, I think about why boundaries are so hard, and it's because boundaries come with a cost. Always. Like there's always a cost. So when you set a boundary with someone, you are risking the fact that like you right away might get like a negative reaction out of someone. You also might feel guilty because when you set a boundary, it doesn't always feel great. You know, you're like, hey, I really like you and you're great and all, but like these are some like non-negotiables that we have to set up right away. It just feels uncomfy, especially if you're doing it from the start because it's a new friendship. So that's always a little awkward. But if you struggle with setting boundaries, I've learned that it's actually because you don't really know what your own goals are in life. And when you don't have your goals mapped out for yourself, how can you create boundaries around those that help you reach that end goal, you know? So if your goal is to create a really solid, good friendship with someone, then you have to know what boundaries need to be set in place to uphold that. But if you don't even know what goal you want out of this friendship, how are you going to be able to create those boundaries? You know what I mean? So you have to kind of look at it a little differently and realize that boundaries are absolutely a must and something you have to have with friendships. And it's something I've learned the hard way over the years, but it's something now that I make sure I set in place right away. Okay, so the next thing I've learned is that not only are boundaries hard to set, but it's very hard to separate friendship and business. You have to wear two entirely different hats, right? So it's already difficult enough alone maintaining a friendship with somebody. It's already difficult enough like trying to have boundaries and have a healthy relationship with them. But then if you add business into the mix, it's like a freaking disaster waiting to happen. So just take it from me. Do not mix business and friendship ever. Don't hire your friends. Don't work with your friends. It's just not going to work. I can probably name 10 times that I've tried to do business with friends and it has failed every single time. There's only maybe one or two friends that I still have kept from trying to do that with people. But I will tell you the fastest way to lose a friend is to try to go into business with them. It just doesn't work, quite literally, because when you think about it, like when you're friends, there's an emotional piece. There's this piece that you don't want to hurt them. And when you flip to the professional side, it's just very hard to turn that off. It's very hard to be like, hey, I need to talk to you as a professional, not as a best friend right now. And that's very hard to juggle between. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm sure there's people out there that are like, oh, I've done that before and it worked. Great. But I'm telling you 99% of the time, it's not going to work. And for me, in my life, it's never happening again. If one of my friends comes to me and says, I have a great business deal, I'm going to say, that's awesome. You run your business, I'll run mine, and we can collaborate or something, but we are not doing a business together. No way. The next lesson that I've learned is that you have to align yourself with friends that have the same values as you, or at least very similar values. I almost look back and go, there was probably a point in my life where I didn't even care about what values I had or what my friends had. And that's what got me in a bad spot, because I was taking on anybody who would just give me attention. And I wasn't really looking at the fact that, like, okay, are they living a life that I want to live? Are they being nice to people? Are they talking bad about their friends behind their back? Like, what are the things that they're doing? Are those things that I would be okay with if they were in my life? I never used to have those thoughts. I just kind of allowed them in. So now I make sure, like, the people that I really get close with, I keep an eye. Like, are they talking crap about their friends to me and then going and hanging out with them the next day? Are they loyal to me? Are they supporting me? Do they push me? Like, there's a lot of things when it comes to like the values and the things that you bring to the table that for me now, like, if you are being shitty, like, I'm not going to be your friend. I'm distancing myself, because if you're going to go do that to someone else or to your mom or to your customers or whatever it might be, you're going to absolutely do it to me. So I've learned very quickly that values are something I have to keep an eye on, because I want friends who are like me or are better than me or are going to make me better than, who I am right now. And if I see some shady stuff happening, I'm done. All right, this is number 5. So my 5th lesson that I've learned, feeling misunderstood is something that I've dealt with for a long time, like literally my whole life. When I was little, I felt like I was misunderstood. As I was growing up, I felt misunderstood. Even in my early 20s, I just kind of felt like I was different than a lot of people. And I really struggled feeling like there were people out there that actually cared, because I am so caring and really want to see people like be their best selves. And I always kind of felt like people were trying to drag me down. Like I was becoming friends with these people who were just like sucking the energy out of me, So now when I find people who truly understand me, like they understand how my brain thinks, they understand how I operate, they're possibly type A like me. They're someone who gets up early, like whatever it might be. If I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, she understands me. She has the same thoughts as me. She understands like why I'm anxious today. She gets like why I'm so motivated. She understands why I put so much of my self-worth in the things I accomplish. Like all those things are really reassuring for me that those are people that need to be in my life, because the last thing you want is to have friends that like do not understand you at all. You know, like if they're not understanding you, or at least trying to understand you, you're going to really struggle to get close with them, because when you have those vulnerable conversations, if you can't get on the same page, it's not really going to go anywhere. And there's something so like gratifying about being around people who understand you, and you almost have this like language between each other where you can just like get each other without even having to try. And that's like the best feeling. So when I find those people, like I keep them very close, because they are pretty hard to come by. And so now when I find people that really resonate with me and like understand, I cling to that. The last lesson that I want to cover is that I've learned, and this is the hardest one. This is the one where I'm like, why do I have to do this? Because I really don't want to. If I could just skip having to do this ever in life, it would be really great. Cutting friends off. This is something I'm like horrible at doing, because again, I see the good in people. I want to like dissect everything out of them that I can to make them better. So when it comes to like cutting people off, it feels so bad because I don't like having to like let go of people. But my energy is important. You can't get that back, that time, that energy that you put towards people. And if they're toxic towards you, they gotta go. So when it comes to cutting people off, I've learned that you actually need to just cut them off without making a big deal about it. I used to feel like you had to have this big falling out and you had to have a fight and this whole elaborate explanation. And the older I get, the more I realize you don't even have to do that. Like actually saying nothing speaks volumes. And so for me, there have been people I've had to cut off and I just silently step away. And now, of course, if they want to talk about it or, you know, they want to have a conversation, I'm going to, but I'm just going to slowly distance myself and set a boundary and kind of move on and move forward. And I'm not going to go tell a bunch of other people about it. I'm not going to go talk crap. And I'm definitely not going to like broadcast it online or something, but I'm just kind of silently moving forward, because I feel like as I mature, I've learned that there sometimes isn't even a reason to explain yourself, because they're just going to misunderstand you no matter what. They're probably going to go into the conversation just telling you you're wrong for whatever reason it is that you're cutting them off, because of course nobody wants to be cut off as a friend. So for me, like I have found so much peace in just backing off, slowly stepping away and moving forward. And cutting people off is very, very hard for me to do. I have like certain times and places where it's like, okay, now I have no choice and I'm going to do that. But I feel like my approach has gotten so much better over the years, where it's not drama. Like before, I feel like when you ended a friendship, it was like World War III and it was like weeks of crying and like this in between of trying to like fix it. And it's like, no, if I'm done, I'm moving on. So I want to hear from you. What is a reason that you have cut off a friend? And what is a reason that maybe you would just be like, we are done here? So reach out to me and tell me your stories, because I would love to hear all of the reasons that you cut off friends, because I'm still working on doing that. I did come up with a list of things that if I like had to choose like why I would say sayonara, this is why. So I'm going to read these off. I feel like these might be some reasons that you would leave your friends too. And these are just things that I've like kept note of over the years, where I'm like, okay, if you aren't going to do that, or if you're being shady, like you're gone. So people who don't check on you during hard times, adios, you're out of here. Because when you're struggling the most, I feel like that is when your true friends shine through and you can tell that they actually care about you. And I thought there were people in my life that cared about me. And in reality, like I learned when I went through a very hard season recently that they were just very selfish. They weren't worried about me at all, because they didn't check in even once. And I mean, we all have a cell phone. It's pretty much attached to our hip. It takes 2 seconds to just check in on a friend. So if they're not checking in on you and they know you're going through a hard time, I'm sorry, I can't. People who only want something out of you, definitely a reason to say bye, because I don't like being used and abused. I feel like it's pretty obvious when people are using you. And I've learned the hard way that people absolutely use me, whether it's for my business, my following on social media, which whatever. I don't even know. I really don't know. I feel like some people just see like an in with me for some reason, and then they try to like leech onto me, and then when they don't get it, they get like pissed off. And I'm like, okay, well, the whole point of us being friends is because you want to have community, not because you're trying to get something out of me. So that's not cool. So bye. People who accuse you of things when they have zero reason to be accusing you of them. That is like a huge red flag to me. Like, I have been accused of things multiple times where I have never given my friends any reason to not trust me, to think I would be that way. And, you know, it's always their inner insecurities coming out, and they're like lashing it out on you because they're insecure about something, and then they try to like turn the blame on you and deflect. But that means they have some growing up to do, and I don't have time for that. People who can't handle your happiness when they're not happy. This is huge. I feel like this happens a lot. Like when you start gaining success or finding like happiness, or you get a new boyfriend or like whatever it might be, and then you just start noticing that your friend starts acting really weird, and they're like shady and like not like patting you on the back at all, and just kind of being like pissy. You know, they're just jealous. But why are you my friend if you're jealous of me? Your friends should be like rooting for you. Like my friends, when they're winning at life or happy or getting married or whatever it might be, I literally could cry tears of joy. I'm so happy for them. I'm not over here being like, F her. Like, I can't believe she's happy, because miserable people just try to make other people miserable. And so don't do that. That's gross. So bye. People who want you to have no friends but them. That's like a huge bye. I had a friend one time that was like this. She was like super possessive. Literally, like if I was friends with anybody but her, it was like the end of the world. I felt like I was in like a committed marriage to her, and it was just way too much. So no, bye. Friends who lie, absolutely no. I mean, obviously we're all human. Like things happen. Like we might tell a white lie, or heck, maybe we do lie and then we own up to it later. Like there's small instances where it might be okay. But if they're like consistently lying to you, or you catch them and then they still don't own up to it, bye. People who insert themselves into drama and love stirring the pot. I cannot. I have no time for that. Like, I do not like drama. I don't even watch reality TV, really. I watched Love Island for like 5 minutes. That's about it. I don't like that stuff. So if you love like instigating things and like stirring the pot and causing drama, you're probably going to do that with me. That's so toxic. I don't have time for that. So adios. And then the last one that I'm going to touch on, there's probably a million more, but these are like my main ones, is going to be if you freaking compete with me. That is the easiest way for me to move on, because you can do the same things as me. I actually think that's a compliment. I love that. There's a time and place, and there's a way to go about it. But if you are like genuinely like, okay, she's doing this, so now I'm going to do this too, and try to one up her like just in spite of her, how are you my friend? And this goes for relationships too, just saying. But like for friends, for sure. When you have friends that just compete with you, it's because they're literally threatened by you and jealous of you. And it's just weird. Like, don't make it weird. So yeah, if you're competing with me, I can't. You're gone. Tune in to the next episode where I'll continue sharing more about friendships.
Visit us at anskinbeauty.com to shop all of our medical grade skincare.